Coaches, elevate your career with the AFCA Career Center. Designed exclusively for active members, this platform provides powerful tools to boost your job search, professional growth, and team building. Create a personalized career profile, explore job openings at all levels, connect directly with hiring organizations, and even post open positions to find top talent for your program. Log in to your AFCA portal today and discover the opportunities waiting for you. Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Arkansas Tech head coach and 2024 AFCA Division 2 Assistant Coach of the Year, Roy Thompson. In this conversation, Coach Thompson discusses the impact that professional development has had on his career, working to prove himself as a coach, and the importance of relationships throughout his journey. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Thompson.
Coach Thompson, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good, man. Excited about kind of walking your journey and seeing how you became such an elite defensive coach, and then what you got planned for Arkansas Tech as you've just taken this new head job. So let's go ahead and dive into this bad boy here. And I always start off with the same question: when did you know you wanted to be a part of this great profession?
Man, it was really early. I tell everybody the story. You know, like in Pop Warner, you know, when they weigh you in. Well, there was one year I was too big, man. I didn't make the weight, dude. I spent all summer running and trying to get myself right so I could get to play. And man, I was too big, so I started coaching like in the 5th grade. No joke, man. The coach let me. You know how they have like the Pop Warner game, but then like they let the kids that don't get to play, like they get to jump in and play. Yeah. You know, at halftime. Right. So that was my gig, man. I was the O-line, D-line coach. 5th grade, I coached the heck out of those kids. So I knew I had the bug pretty early, man. I had it pretty early.
So you got some early exposure to this profession, man. That's good. And you got to be a part of the halftime show. That's just icing on the cake right there, man. Well, you played your time at spent your time as a player at Belhaven. I was right across the street for a little bit over at Millsaps. At some point in time in my coaching career, and shortly after that, you did the hardest thing really quickly. You broke into the profession with your first gig at Highland Community College. How did you approach that? How did you make it known? It's like you said, you knew since you were young that you wanted to be a part of this profession. What did you do along your playing career to like let the coaches know, let people around you know that when you were done, you want to be a part of this?
Absolutely. Well, man, I had a really good relationship with my head coach, Don Lee, who was the head coach at Belhaven at that time. And so, you know, during that time, he had a GA job open, and a guy from Millsap, Keith Majors, who passed, but Keith had just got the job at Highland, and I let my coach know that I wanted to coach. I was volunteering in the coach's office, helping with recruiting after my senior year, just to kind of try to get some experience and learn a little bit. And so that's how I got my first job. He gave his job to another guy, but he got me with Keith, and it was funny. Me and another guy I played with, we drove up to Kansas, you know, seniors in college, to go on the first interview to be a coach, and that's how my career started, man. Like, I was sold, dude. I was sold on it. You know, they gave me $3,000. Housing and meals, and I thought I was a big-time football coach, man. And so that experience was probably one of the best experiences of my career, because the guy I worked for he's the DC, Kai Burrell played at Grambling, man. Kai took me under his wing, and he locked me in a room, and he made me watch those old VHS tapes, right? And he made me sit there for a week, 2 weeks, and develop a philosophy of what kind of coach that I want to be. I'm talking about, he locked me in there. Like, I was on lockdown. And I did. I watched those videos, and I knew as a player what I liked. And Heck, man, a lot of the stuff, if I had to coach D-line today, a lot of the stuff I learned from locked in that room, watching some of the greats coach and drill, and then what he taught me, man, that's where my career started. I appreciate it, for sure.
Man. Well, like you said, started in the journey in the car to I don't even know. What city is that in?
It's in Highland, Kansas.
It's in Highland, Kansas.
It's right. It's probably 45 minutes from St. Joe, Missouri. It's right in that northeast corner. So
you hop in the car, heading up to Highland, Kansas, which I'm sure you at no point had ever been before in your life, and you go sit down for an interview. What did that interview look like? Knowing that you knew ball from a player's perspective, but you didn't have a philosophy together. You didn't have drill tape. Didn't have any of that stuff. So what did that interview look like for you?
You sit down with the head coach, and he was a young guy putting the staff together. And again, it was that prior relationship we had with my head coach. So it was that, hey, Roy's a good guy. He'll come in and work hard for you. So really, it was that head coach sharing his vision and what his expectations were for me in that first job. And so, and then it wasn't as much about how much football I knew at that point. It was like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to accomplish. But I did get a chance to sit down with the DC, and he shared his vision of what he wanted to do and background and getting to know. And I think it was a people thing on that first opportunity. It really was, trying to put a bunch of good people in a room together because they knew they were going to have to teach me some stuff. And,
sure.
and again, I appreciate those guys for what they did.
Now, you mentioned being locked in that room and honestly how pivotal that's been for your career, just ball for about 14 days straight. Beyond that, what was one of the things that really helped set the foundation as you've been able to have the career that you've had thus far in that first year of Highland, where you're realizing that, man, I know D-line, but I really don't know D-line like I thought I did. When you're having all those realizations that, man, there's so much more to ball than what you were doing at Belhaven in high school and in the fifth grade, coaching those Pee Wee league, Wow. What was one of those things that stood out?
Man, look, that opportunity, when I got that job, they also made me the recruiting coordinator. So,
wow. Okay.
That was a huge job and a huge undertaking. But you're right, man. Getting to run your own position meeting room at that young age and learning how to run that position meeting room, how to motivate players and get them to play for you. You got the energy and the knowledge you got as a player and kind of what you're looking for. But there was so many learning experiences. And some of those I still kept improving on even after that job. When you first get into coaching, all you want to do is coach ball.
That's right.
You want the field. Man, what about academics? What about recruiting? What about, player management in those all other areas that pretty much as a young position coach, I was terrible at fresh out of college. I didn't even realize those were parts of the profession, right?
Right.
And so I learned a lot in that first year of how to do all of the stuff off the field that doesn't get the glitz and the glamour and the glory, but are very important to your longevity in this career.
Yeah. Well, you talk about being at a community college. You have this 2-year turnover with players coming in and out, and then honestly have a lot of attrition. Guys coming in just realizing it's not for them. As a recruiting coordinator, that's never seen it anywhere else. What was that like for you just to take on such a big role? At a program that has been good over the years.
Man, it was like trying to drink water through a fire hose, and so. It was relying on those resources, calling the guys that I played for, and how do we do it, and really asking for help. And I would say that, man, as a young coach, you can go in there and try to do it all by yourself, or you can ask for help. And I was one of those guys. I'm not ashamed to ask guys in my coaching community, in my coaching circle, how are you doing it? What did you do? And so I learned that lesson as a young coach and trying to get a recruiting plan ready for an area that I wasn't familiar with and relationship with coaches. So I learned, I'm telling you, I learned a lot, but I reached out to people and talked to people and again, sometimes the best way to learn is under fire.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's interesting you say that you just put an emphasis on how much you learned in that year. And I think even you almost learn how to go. Obviously, you learn how to do your job, but you also learn how to survive in this profession. Picking the phone up, do professional development. Say, hey, bro, how you doing this? How you handling this? How you stopping this guy on power? All the questions. Where you're right. A lot of people go into the profession. They don't think about that. They don't think about how to just pick the phone up, get to the AFCA convention. I'm not trying to plug us in here or anything like that, but just being able to go and tap into your resources. In 2007, you get an interesting call to kind of come back after 1 year at Highland Community College to come back to Belhaven. Talk to us about how that popped up, and then I have a couple questions for you regarding that job.
Yeah, well, again, I played for those guys, and my time at Highland had come to an end. It was freezing, guys. It was the coldest I've ever been in my life. I couldn't handle it. But no, coach called me, and he had that GA job had turned over, and he wanted me to come back. And I love Belhaven. It was a great time in my life. So I definitely wanted to end up back there and working with those guys who I still call and talk to those guys today. They're some of my mentors and some of my closest friends that I learned a lot from through the profession. So that opportunity came about just really through relationships. And I'll say this, I did a good job as a player. I wasn't the best player on Belhaven's football team, not by far, but I was a good player. I was a good teammate. I tried to be a leader. You know what I'm saying? I tried to do it the right way. And so because of how I did as a player, those guys knew that if we brought Roy back, he'd do a good job for me.
Yeah, and yeah, I know you've been a little modest there. 2016 captain, for the program. So I think a lot of times when I see these team captains that end up being coaches, I feel like they've already established some leadership amongst the players, because that is a tough thing. 1 year ago, at this time, I'm talking about in 2007. At that point, 1 year ago, I don't know what your personal life was like, but you were in the dorm, playing PlayStation 3, whatever it was at the time, having a good time with your boys. And so now you're walking into this situation and you're coaching these same guys. Once again, establishing that coach-player relationship can be a little bit more difficult when you return to your alma mater that fast. But having that team captain role, I'm assuming helped just a little bit. But how did you navigate these new type of relationships with guys you knew?
Man, you know what? And it was good, because you're right. I was just in the room with some of those guys, and now I turn around and I was coaching them. When I got a chance to come back, I met with the guys that I knew individually, and I told them, I said, listen, I'm a coach. Y'all gonna have to, like, when we're doing the coaching thing, y'all gonna have to give me some slack. Like, y'all gonna have to act right, do what everybody else is doing. And you can't have those same relationships either. And I guess I was even at that point, I was mature enough to be like, I'm a coach now. Yeah. I live in this box. We boys. This is how we got to do it. And so my friends and the guys that I play with, they were cool, and they were mature enough to like there was a D lineman and we were boys. And he was like, come on, Roy. And I'm like, nah, you got it. But he respected that relationship. And because of a guy like that who was playing and a good player respected it, everybody else kind of fell in line too.
Going through my profession, I was able to coach for two guys that I played with. I played at Army and Baylor during my times. I got to coach for both my head coaches, and it was versus my other jobs. It was always unique because that player-coach relationship doesn't change. I'm talking about when you're the player, right? So that was still coach. You know what I mean? Even when we were sitting in those staff meetings and I'm disagreeing with something, that was still coaching at times. And just being honest here, at times it was like, I ain't gonna say that's coach. Even he might put me on the line, even though I'm a full-time wide receiver coach here. Did you struggle with that at all? Being a former player to a lot of those guys, or were you able to kind of tap in and just be yourself from the jump?
No, it was. I would say I was still in the learning phase. And you're right, they are still coach. And so you do view it like that. I think I was still probably at the point in my career where I was still learning and developing philosophies and how to do stuff. And I remember that time in my life, man, I was just still eager to learn ball. I was the guy that would be in the offensive, the quarterback coach, Tony Joe White. He's one of my close friends today in the profession. He's the head coach at Austin College. I would be in Tony Joe's office drawing up plays. I'm defense. I'm drawing up plays, and Tony would like, how you gonna block it? How you gonna protect it? And he spent a lot of time with me just listening to the young GA drawing up on the board, and that's another thing, man. I got guys a lot of time. At Ouachita, I made some of the GAs coming off. You got to draw me up a play a day, because that's how you learn. Like everybody thinks they got the answer, but until you get up on the board and teach and learn how to teach, right. I learned a lot by being up on that board, not even realizing it. How do I teach? How do I present ideas? And so, that player coach relationship and learning through it and going in there and being eager to learn. That's where I was when I came back to Belhaven. On the field, because we had success at Highland, like we led the league in sacks, so we were pretty good. I knew I was a good football coach, but there was so much about coaching and football and knowledge of the game on both sides that that I didn't know, and I was just hungry. I was hungry to learn, and that's really where I was.
Yeah, you know what? I this is my first time meeting you, and so you take this with a grain of salt. But if I could give you any advice, not that I've ever sat in your shoes, I can only hope to be a head ball coach. Don't lose that, man. Like I think in a professional a little bit, it's harder to win. It's more pressure to win. It's go. You got 100 people on your staff. You know, you just got so many things going on. But you talk about how meaningful that was for you as a young coach to be in there on the board with that coach. And then now you say as a DC, you were telling these young guys, but now you're sitting in a head coach chair, and obviously that list of things to do every day is a lot bigger. And man, I would continue to encourage. I always get excited when I hear coaches talk about, you know, how their coaches on the staff was professionally developing them, you know, with intent. Like, hey, man, you're not just learning on the fly, but we're actually going to intentionally have you come here and draw a play, and we're going to talk about it, or talk about coverage. I just think that's an awesome deal. So that's great that you did, and then pass the torch to these young guys that are underneath you to, you know, have that opportunity. So if you can, you know, if things don't get too hectic out there for you as a head ball coach, man, keep that up. That's phenomenal. So you spent 2 years there as defensive line coach, and I guess you had some opportunity at linebackers. How was that switch for you in regards to coaching a position you never played or coached, I'm assuming?
It was good, and I'm glad Coach put me in that situation to kind of, you know, go from the front a little bit to the back. And again, it was an experience. It was educational, you know, and I learned a lot again from that, you know, and again, using the resources that we had on the staff and talking to people, watching those videos that we have digitally and whatever, buying DVDs, like trying to really learn and figure out, all right, again, I played linebacker in high school, so I had some ideas, but you know, how do you do it at a high level? And so it was good, and I learned a lot during that year switching from D-line to linebacker.
All right. So once again, we talk about transition and profession. It's just a thing that happens. You know, in 2009, you got an opportunity to transition. And whether it was a good or bad transition, I don't know. I guess you'll explain to us here. But ultimately, you go from Belhaven to Ouachita Baptist for your first stint. How did that situation arise, and how did you land at Ouachita Baptist?
Yeah. So at that time I was a GA at Belhaven, right? I had spent my 2 years as a GA. You know, had a good experience there, and then it was pretty much time to move on because I was done. It wasn't a full-time opportunity there. So the Ouachita opportunity is pretty interesting, probably pretty unique. So my older brother played for Coach Knight at Delta State in 1998. My older brother, he's 6'5", he's 280, I'm 5'11". Dude got all the height, he ain't saved me none of it. And Coach Knight had just lost his D-line coach. And I just sent an email. Coach Knight really didn't know me. He came to my house with my brother. My brother was 18 to 20, 22. I was 12. Yeah. He didn't know me like that.
Right.
But he knew the family, right? And, you know, my parents, they wasn't the family that was at every game either. So we went to 2 games at Delta State in my brother's time. But in his one interaction, he knew them Thompsons were good folks, right? And so I sent the email, and the story happens that you know, there was another guy. And pretty much they weren't going to hire me. There was another guy, big time school. And what Coach Knight tells me, maybe he just makes me feel good, but I blew the interview out of the water. He's like, I whipped that dude's butt in that interview through the experiences I had. And so that Ouachita job, it was pretty much a restricted earnings job. I tell people, man, because at Belhaven, I was in the teacher program, so I was getting paid. I was getting paid at that time $35,000 to be a teacher. I took a $10,000 pay cut, and I didn't blink an eye because I knew I wanted to coach college football, and I felt like Division II football at Ouachita at that time, that was a great opportunity, and it was. It probably set me up for where I'm sitting at today from a coach perspective. And so I got a chance to go in there, and that was my first real interview. Like, take the jacket off, get on the board, like, get it. And so it was awesome, man. It's probably one of the best experiences of my life, and I did. I went in there like, I'm finna go get this deal, and it worked out in my favor.
You know, I'm gonna ask you this question here. As you walked into that interview, did you have any conversations with anybody about what an interview was supposed to look like? Did you have any idea what you were walking into? I guess because this is much different than that drive to Highland.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I didn't have a clue what I was walking into. But I talked to some guys, and they were like, you know, have some stuff drawn up, have some books. But you know how like now they like, oh, have your PowerPoint
right.
and your book. Man, I didn't have all that stuff. I didn't, right? I knew how to squeeze. I knew how to spill. I knew how to step and punch.
Right.
And so, you know, it wasn't a 2-hour presentation that looked good on paper. Like, I was standing up talking about how to defeat blocks. And I think all of that stuff is important, right? But I had an interactive, more so interview. It was, tell me about your philosophy. And then I was going to get up and I was going to show you how I was going to teach that kid to do it. And do those different things.
Well, you know, I like staying chronologically as much as possible, but I do want to ask you this question here. I think it's interesting, man. Once again, I'm out and I'm fully here at the AFCA, but during my time, I would say I went on maybe 8 to 10 interviews in my profession. They were all drastically different. Now, obviously some similarities. Am I a good dude? Do I know ball? Do I know my position? I'm going to treat the kids good. But like just how they were conducted, you know, some of them I stayed the night. Some of them, they told me to wear a polo. Other ones, they told me to wear a suit. You know, some we got on the field. I coached the kid. You know, I can, the list goes on. But you having that experience and blowing it out the water, per se, as Coach Knight put it, you know, obviously you were a lot more hands-on. It wasn't about you being able to put this PowerPoint up and kind of regurgitate the facts. It was more about you being able to show and display that you could coach ball. Now that you're in the seat, because a lot of people don't get to make it all the way as far as you do to conduct their own interviews. Does that change? Not change, I guess is your kind of your first round of ever doing this, but has that kind of put your philosophy on interviews into a certain perspective, or do you do things differently?
Hey, you know, Coach Knight, when I was at OBU, he would let me hire a lot of my own GAs. And one of my GAs is the DC at Ouachita right now.
Oh, okay. All
right. Another one is the AD at Russ. Now, I didn't do nothing. I hired football coaches.
Yeah.
Them dudes are ball coaches. So if you want to interview with Coach Thompson, you better be a ball coach, you know?
Right.
That's what we're doing. You ain't got to have a big-time PowerPoint. You ain't got to try to blow smoke up my butt. You need to be coaching. You need to treat kids right. And that's really what I'm looking for. And so I put a high value on guys who can coach ball. Coaches. Like when I get out, if I get out of interview with a guy and I say, I need to be able to say that guy ball coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want that guy coaching me. I want that guy coaching my kids. Because those guys, they got all that. They can do everything. They can recruit. They'll do the administrative, right? They'll treat kids right. And yeah, when you get them on the field or on the board, them dudes are ball coaches in all of those different areas. They think outside the box. And there's different values on all of it. We don't all look the same.
Right.
You know? All of us are a little bit different on what being a ball coach is, you know? Some of it is analytical. You know, some of it is that grit and grind and hands-on. But at the end of the day, when that dude walk out of the room, you probably say that dude's a ball coach. That's the guy I'm looking for.
Yeah, so having some of those experiences as a DC helped you a little bit now as you're going to have to hire, and hopefully not too much firing, but hire and fire guys. You've got some prep with it. And so you're a little bit more prepared. That's awesome, man. Well, let's go back in time and get back to where we were here. Your Ouachita Baptist took a restricted earnings job, which is interesting for young coaches that are listening to this. Like oftentimes, I mean, you can go to some situations depending on the size of the school where your GA it operates like a full-time coach, but he also has the GA duties. You know, that restricted earnings thing is just nothing but your earnings are restricted, right? I mean, was that your experience? And so basically you're the D-line coach, and I believe you coach linebackers there as well. Now this is your first time. You're not GA, and it's not the first gig where you're just figuring things out, man. You got your room, and you're trying to get boys ready to play on Saturdays. What was that experience like to kind of truly be taking the lead and, you know, not have that kind of GA tie into it?
Yeah. No, it was good because I think Ouachita, you know, at that time we were in the GSC. So, I mean, we were in one of the best Division II conferences in the country, and the people that showed up there every week were super talented. So for me, it was a big time challenge going from junior college ball to NAIA ball to Division II ball in a really tough conference. It was good. It was exactly what I was looking for, and I knew I kind of did feel like all right, this is it right here, right? It's a high level of football. Like, we got scholarships. We can all of those things were important to me, and so yeah. It's kind of funny. At Belhaven, we were really good on the D-line. I think we might have led the league in sacks there too. And so it was like, all right, done it at Highland, done it at Belhaven. Can we recreate a monster here at Ouachita, like up front? That was my goal. Like, I wanted the best D-line in the league. And so having that opportunity to build a defensive line unit and seeing how somebody who is he's one of the best in the profession, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, there's Todd Knight is one of the best coaches, period, point blank. And being able to learn from him and how he runs the program and the expectation he puts on his coaches and development. So that was good being with somebody who did it like that and getting a chance to be a part of a great program. I was excited about it. I was excited about it for sure. And it went well. You know, our defensive line units performed well during my time at Ouachita. And so at that point, I had experience, right?
Yeah.
1 year at Highland, 2 years at Belhaven, multiple positions. I knew what I was doing in that year when I walked in that room. I had full confidence that I can run that room.
Well, once again, just kind of pushing forward a little bit. You're going to be a DC in about 2 years from this stop. You know, that last year in Ouachita Baptist in 2012, you're going to be a DC in a couple years. What were you doing as a D-line coach? Did you spend a little time at linebackers there at Ouachita Baptist?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
As a D-line coach and linebackers coach, to help you prepare for what was inevitably coming. IE, especially, you know, I mean, you know this. A lot of times D-line coaches, what's the biggest knock? They don't know the back end. They don't know what's going on in the secondary. What were you thinking about that yet at that point in time?
Well, listen, so at first off, man, I was probably like a lot of guys. I was trying to be the best D-line coach in the country. And the DC we had at that time, J.R. Eldridge, great coach, great mentor, learned a lot from him. He was the brains and I was the D-line coach. I was going to get him there. Yeah. After JR left is when I really started to feel like, man, I wanted to be a DC. And it was that conversation that you don't know the back end, right? Yeah. You're probably not ready yet. But one thing Coach Knight did for me is he gave me a chance to go to the back end, you know? He told me, he said, I'm going to get you ready. You're not ready for the job right now, okay, right? But I'm going to get you ready. I'm going to move you to this spot so that you know and you understand. He didn't have to do that, but he did. And so I was able to go back there and coach linebackers. And again, that was awesome in my career, you know, for that opportunity to go back there. And so that in this profession, a lot of times we do, man, there's probably some D-line coaches that know the whole game, but we put them in this box, right? Oh, yeah. And so Coach Knight allowed me to get out of that box, right, to help my career. Yeah, you know, was pretty big time.
Yeah, man. I wouldn't. Hopefully, you don't feel like I was poking you out or that position because there's a lot of boxes in this profession. I mean, you talk about bouncing from JC to NAI to D2. I mean, you easily can be a JC coach. You know, you can easily be a NAI guy, and so there's those boxes and they're real. And so I guess I'll follow up with that. When you were kind of ready to be that DC, you know, prior to him saying, hey, you're not quite ready, you know, sometimes things don't make sense in the moment. Mm-hmm. And then you look back and you're like, okay, man, that was huge. I didn't realize that then. Were you in that state of mind or did you kind of just go with the flow with Coach Knight on that?
Yeah, no. So, man, like, you know, I got passed up for the DC job at Ouachita twice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Twice. The first time, you know, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't ready when you look back at it. Yeah. The second time, I probably was ready, you know, if you want me to be honest. And I think if you ask Coach Knight, he'd probably tell you too, but he had an elite program. He had to make a hire that he thought was right. And I don't disagree with him. Right. You know, and so again, you say that. So I went out and I'm probably jumping forward in the timeline, but at that point I went out to Mendocino and I said, all right, I'm ready. And I went to prove it. Well, I went to prove, you know,
that's huge, man. I mean, I think the fact that you can even verbally kind of mention some of that stuff, because now you're sitting in that seat where you have to make these decisions, where you're going to get a guy that comes in there and says, hey, coach, I know the OC just left. I'm ready. You look at it, I'm like, dude, you don't know the route tree. You don't know what's going on understand. And some of these experiences, you know, even if they didn't make sense then, they're going to help you out tremendously as a head ball coach, as you have to face some of these tough decisions and these thought processes. So yeah, after a couple of years there with Todd Knight, in 2013, make sure I got this right here, you return back to your alma mater as a special teams coordinator, defensive line coach, once again at Belhaven. That's right. Third stint back at home. You know, how did that happen?
I got a great story about that, man. So this was the second time, right? The second time Coach Knight, he hired a new DC. And I did what a lot of coaches did. I felt like I needed to leave to go and be a coordinator. At least I felt like that, right? Right. And I took a bad job. It wasn't the Belhaven job. I took a job that I shouldn't have taken. And on the way down to that bad job that I took, it's not listed on that resume.
Oh, I'm gonna have to do my homework. I'm gonna find it out.
On my way down there, man, one of my friends one of my coaches called me from Belhaven, and they gave me an opportunity, and I did, man. Look, I'm a man of faith, and you shouldn't move without talking to God. That's just how I believe, and I made a move without probably talking to the man. And I got down there, and I had a pit in my stomach, and I couldn't sleep. And God provided a door for me to return to Belhaven. And I really do think I took a bad job, and I shouldn't have taken it. And God opened the door for me to go to Belhaven. So that's how I got to Belhaven on the third stint. Is I acted probably out of immaturity, and I shouldn't have, because I had a good job and I left it for not a good reason, right? Because I wasn't mature enough to handle the situation. That's probably what it was. And so I ended up back in Belhaven, and it was a blessing for me because I got to work on the special team side. And so that was a big time opportunity for me.
So essentially, it was kind of a knee jerk reaction. Man, I just got to go find something, get up out of here. And ultimately, and luckily it works out for you. You get to return and get some coordinator experience within the special teams, which is huge. Kind of return to home, recalibrate a little bit, and then 2014, you get an opportunity to kind of get that first DC job. Talk about once again that transition, but just being there for a short period of time and finding the next opportunity.
Yeah. So the Belhaven opportunity, it was 1 year. The head coach decided to resign, and so the normal staff turnover happened. I got to work 6 months for Hal Mummy, which was a really cool experience because Hal became into Belhaven as the head coach at that time, and I learned a lot from him, even in that short time, about how he ran a program, how he did it different than some guys I've been with before. And then the way I got to Mendocino is a crazy story. My GA at Ouachita, young guy, he probably was one of the youngest head coaches in the country at that time. In the 2-year period, he became the head coach. Yeah. And he was like, Roy, I want you to come be my DC. So that's how I got my first DC job. Again, I probably took a pay cut to go take that job. You know what I'm saying? To go to Ukiah, California, because I said, again, I'm going to make sure that, I knew I was ready to be a DC, and so I wanted to go and I wanted to put it on paper and I wanted to do it, And so that's how that opportunity went. In the first year, we were terrible. And a lot of the philosophies and things that I took back to Ouachita and I've taken in my career are things I told people. I got an opportunity to learn how to be a DC when nobody was looking. There was nobody at the game in Ukiah, California. And I developed a lot of philosophies that have made me successful today. And I'm thankful that I got to go back to Ouachita after being at Mendo, because by that time I was ready.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting timeline because, Ouachita Baptist, obviously Coach Knight was there. I mean, he had been there. So you kind of leave and go and figure some things out within yourself, obviously within, the profession, being a defensive coordinator. But, you kind of look at the timeline, you're Ouachita, you're at Belhaven, you kind of got this odd trip up to Kansas, but it's far, it ain't that far though in the grand scheme of things, but to bet on yourself a little bit and move to Cali, that's crazy. That's a big move. There had to have been at least some type of look in the mirror, or those talks you were mentioning where you had some question marks, I would assume, right?
Yeah. Hey, this is a great story. So I bought a house because I expected to be in Belhaven for a while. And I had one kid, and my wife had we had a 1-year-old, and pretty much my wife, we pretty much had twins. We had 2 kids within a year, and I go in there and I tell my wife, hey, Frank got a job, and we're going to California. We sold our house. We one of them families, man. We sold our house. We had a garage sale, sold everything in it. We went to Ukiah. We lived in an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, 14 steps to the top of the stairs with 2 twins, because we knew we wanted to do this. It wasn't Roy wanted to do this. My wife was in it. We were like, we're going to go do this. And so that's what we did. And it was a learning experience. It was fun. Ukiah was one of the best places I ever lived, even though it was a crazy experience, very crazy, but it was awesome. You met some great people. It was a great place. It was a great time. That's what I can say about it.
Well, kind of like I was earlier when I was mentioning the professional development within your people on your staff and how you had that experience as a young coach. I kind of feel very passionate on the same thing. Anybody that talks about the wife, the family, and I think that's special. I think that's huge. Obviously, I think it's a bigger backbone of the profession that people give credit for. It's hard to be good in this profession if things aren't right at the house. It's hard to be good in this profession if you take that trip to Cali and they say, hey, you know what? You go do your thing. We're gonna stay here in Jackson. That becomes a little difficult, you know. And so being able to have that, just real quick, we'll get back on track. What has it meant, and how did you kind of find a wife that could understand the profession? It was difficult for me and my wife initially, but we figured it out.
Yeah. Me and my wife, we dated in college, and she broke up with me. She broke up with me because, her parents are missionaries into Mexico, and she wanted to go home and work in the mission. And I told her in college, I'm going to be a football coach. I'm going to be a college football coach. We're going to move all over the country. We're going to do this, and we're going to be the head coach at XYZ University one day. And she broke up with me. And we stayed broke up for probably, 6 months to a semester. And then, I prayed. I said, God, whoever, if she for me, let her come back. And at some point she did, right? And so when she came back, we knew what we were doing. She knew the profession and what we chose to do. And so she's a rock star, man. She's been a part of it, and I don't make a decision without her. And she is, sometimes she say no. And then she probably right. And sometimes she say yes, but we make the decisions together. And
that's our method.
And when she feels good about it, we do it for sure.
Well, okay, let's get back to been out there in Cali. You mentioned that first year was kind of tough. I don't know about for you personally or whatever, but obviously some opportunities to grow. But in 2015, total number 4 in total defense in Cali, number 1 defense in the Pac-7 conference, number 15 total defense nationally, right? And it's your first time doing it, and I would assume you got a big chip on your shoulder at this point in time. Maybe not visually, but I know you're trying to prove that you can go and do this thing. What was the biggest jump from having this terrible team to being able to be, nationally ranked team, nationally ranked defense?
Man, I'll tell you this: we all have the ideas, right, that we can do it and what it looks like, and this is for anybody, right? You work under a great DC and you think you're just going to go out there and roll out there and do what he does, and you ain't going to do that, okay? You're going to have to develop your philosophies. And so in that first year, I probably tried to repeat what JR was doing. The JR defense didn't work in Ukiah, California, right? I had to figure out again, right? What do I believe in? What does it take to be a good football team defensively? And so from the first year to the second year, I had to figure out what can my players do? You see what I'm saying? So I couldn't run JR's defense because I didn't have JR's players.
Right.
I had to figure out with the players I got, what could I do? And so we adjusted from year 1 to year 2 into what could our players do and what was some core values I believe that we had to have to play good football. And we started recruiting. We recruited hard from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
And all of those different things turned around. So when I say for real, the playbook I took from Ukiah, California, I'll take it anywhere with me. To this day, because I believe in those fundamental principles that they're in there, and you can do it anywhere and what it takes to be successful. So I do, man. One of the biggest blessings of my life was Ukiah, California, because I got a chance to, being the DC at Ouachita before you're ready, you'll be fired in 3 years, or name the university.
Yeah.
Getting the opportunity to go put it on paper and to do it and develop, that was a big time opportunity for me.
Yeah, you know what? As you were talking, it made me think of this quote. I was sitting there talking with a sitting FBS head coach, and we were deep in some conversation. And he said to me, he's like, "Man, one of the biggest things I learned was you don't picture it going bad. I'm gonna go be DC, and we gonna rock the house. You ain't gonna get a first down." He's like, but you never sit there and say we gonna stink that first year. Right. And ultimately not having that realization, which you shouldn't. I'm not saying you should think like that, but not having that realization when you do stink, a lot of people don't know what to do. They don't know the adjustments to make. So I guess the question I have for you is, what was it like having to look in that mirror? Right. Because you were ready. You had been ready. Coach, I had been ready. Right. And all of a sudden it didn't look too good. So what was it like to look in the mirror after that season and kind of say, okay, this is what needs to happen?
Hey, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what happened. You know, because we all, man, I'm sure there's a bunch of, we dream of it. And you're right, we don't dream of it going bad, and you're sitting in there and you're in the middle of a terrible season and you know you're a good football coach, right?
Right.
But I sat in that room and I started to write down, like you got to really lock yourself in the room and you got to say, what are we doing well? What are we doing poorly? And what do we have to do to be successful? I think a lot of people can't look and say, man, I did a bad job at X, Y, Z.
Right. It's hard to do.
You know, it's easy. And I learned this from the first DC I worked for. He said, he used to always say, like, it's easy to blame the kid. Mm-hmm. That's the easiest thing in coaching to do, is say the kid didn't do it. But it's hard for me to, and this is why some of the coaches I work with, they say, man, you take too much of the blame. But that's my job. That's my job, is to get the kid to do whatever it is consistently. And I really do believe that. Now, at some point, if the kid don't do it, it's my job to take that kid off the field.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, if those kids go out there and they don't play good on a Saturday on Roy's defense, it's Roy's fault.
Yeah.
I coached them all week. I allowed it to happen, right? Whatever it was, they didn't run to the football. They didn't tackle. They didn't come to balance or long stride, short stride on the tackle. I allowed it to happen in practice through stuff I let them do repetitively. So it is my fault. And so I had to look at myself. Man, it's so hard to watch those cut-ups at the end of the year and see some of the stuff you allowed to happen the football field.
Right.
Yeah, man. And at the end of that year, that's what I did. And I developed again some core philosophies. I was like, we ain't doing these things. Right. They ain't gonna happen in Roy's defense no more. And people, when you take the next job, they'll argue with, like, well, coach, we did it like that. Well, I seen it not work like that. This is how we gonna do it.
Yeah. I
get excited about that because I did, man. And you got it. That's what I did. And those core philosophies, they roll with me to this day. If I see them, we're just not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Or we ain't gonna do it like that.
Coach, that's powerful what you just said there. I mean, just essentially just taking ownership in it. I mean, just starting with the ownership, and this is my defense. I'm a receiver coach. These are my wideouts. If they dropping the ball, if they're not blocking, if they're not doing this, not because little Jimmy sucks or, you know, is not a good player.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not coaching it right. I got the wrong kid out there. But the ownership starts with me, because we've all sat in those meetings where you're just sitting there with your feet up watching those end of the season cut ups. And, oh, look at Mario not spilling the edge. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we're gonna replace him. And you're sitting there like, no, this is my defense. This is my this is not Jimmy messing up. This is me. And that's powerful, man. I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And honestly, in a profession like this where we all play, you know, not everybody play with college ball, but we all kind of got a little ego, and we all got, you know, it's hard to point. It's hard to point the thumb, and the really good ones do. So you had an opportunity to kind of turn that defense around, get that thing going there. And 2016, I'm really curious about this now. I really understand this timeline a lot better. How did you get reunited there with Coach Knight in Ouachita Baptist as the defensive coordinator?
Me and Coach Knight, we stayed in contact the whole time I was out in Cali, man. It's relationship. Okay. And, you know, sometimes I would call him and sometimes he would call me. It was like we had a relationship. We did. Like Coach Knight was good. You know, he's a great guy for me. And so we kept that relationship. And so I told him, like, I spent 2 years in Cali and when I say for family reasons, like I didn't want to live out there long term. I was flying back and forth, right. You know, on the summers, whatever money I made, I was spending it traveling back. And so I knew, like, we had to get back down south. And so I had told him I was trying to get back down south, and he was trying to help me get some DC jobs in some other places. But just so happened that all of that happened, and he had a job come open at that time. So it really just worked out perfect.
So I'm going to say this, man. One of the commonalities, I think probably with anybody, not that this is super unique, but it just really is apparent in your kind of timeline here, is relationships. I mean, your first gig is a relationship. You know, a ball coach, you knew the other guy, and it kind of is a common thing. It would have been super easy for you to kind of miss that second opportunity as the DC and get bitter. And I ain't calling Coach Knight, man, you know, or be like that. But how were you able to, I guess, you know, not even for a job in the future, but why was it important to you to maintain a good relationship and not be bitter about, you know, not being the coordinator those two times?
Yeah. I think it was childhood upbringing too. My mom and them always told me, man, don't burn a bridge. You don't never know when you're gonna need it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's maturity and it's being people of faith and it's not holding grudges. And listen, I accepted and I understood that. Like once I got to Ukiah and even though you're a good coach, it goes bad. It's like, maybe I quite wasn't ready yet.
Yeah, maybe he's right.
No, maybe he was right. You know what I'm saying? And listen, for where the program was at that time, he was right. And I was mature enough to understand that later.
Right.
We're not always mature enough to understand that. We just know like we're good and it's no different than what players do. I'm the best player and I should be on the field and I should have this and you can't see that. He might be more prepared for you today.
Right.
You might need a little more time to be the starter. And so I think that's where it was. And I was able to understand that through those experiences that I still had some growing to do.
Now, this is unique this time, right? Because you're not, let's say you had stayed there, rather than going to Belhaven and going out to Cali. Let's say you stayed there, then obviously you would have kind of grown into being a coordinator, right mm-hmm. there. But you went and you had this experience. So now when you're showing up, you got 2 years of experience of being a DC. What was your approach when you walked in there at that time? As the defensive coordinator, you kind of built a new philosophy. You kind of changed up maybe even some stuff that on the field, some of the X and O stuff. How did you approach that job this time? Yeah.
So when I came back, man, in 16 I was the co-DC, so I got a chance to work with another guy, and that was a good experience because I got to learn the system outside of it, but I could still implement some of the principles that I believe in.
Okay.
And then I don't know if it was 1 year or two, but he ended up getting another opportunity, and I got a chance to be the full DC.
Yeah.
And so I told those kids on day one when I walked in there, we're going to be the best defense in the GAC, and I believed it.
Yeah.
And I knew it. Because it's kind of like when you got a good recipe, right? You got a good recipe, you know what goes in, and you know that thing good. You're making ribs, you're making chicken. When you cook it, you know it's going to be fire.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. I knew the recipe was good. I knew it was good. People were going to be licking their fingers.
You know.
So I was ready I knew I had already done it too,
yeah,
right?
Right.
First time I was going to be, well, maybe we can do this. No, bro, I did it. I knew what worked. I knew what didn't work. And I was ready to implement that vision and put it into place,
Well, you know what? I'm going to backtrack real quick. I didn't mention that those 2 years you were D coordinator. You were the DB coach, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and I wanted to tap on that, and I kind of forgot to ask the question. So, what was that experience like, and how helpful for you was that, overall?
You know what? In my career, again, it go back to boxes. I wasn't gonna let nobody put me back in a box.
Yeah,
couldn't be the DB coach. Couldn't be the linebackers. Couldn't be the DC because I couldn't coach linebackers. And I was like, once I started getting to the next level, I want to make sure they couldn't say, "Well, you ain't never coached in the secondary." Yes, I did. I've done it. I coached corners. I coached safety. I've done it. So, and it was also about understanding all of those different phases. So, like we put in a press technique at Ouachita that nobody else was doing that I learned at a camp or a clinic when I was in Ukiah. You know what I'm saying? Learning those principles. So our press technique developed from there, and now is we're running with it. But that opportunity gave us a press technique that I feel like was really effective. You know what I'm saying? So that opportunity worked out because we were able to implement that also.
Yeah, man, that's huge. Like you said, and I've been able to kind of put you in a box at this point. You coach all 11 spots on the field, all 11 spots on the field, and I'm sure you kind of look at your background. Most people wouldn't guess that you kind of pioneered this really unique press coverage as a D-line guy that's kind of pioneered a really interesting press coverage. So anyways, I'm gonna brag on you here real quick. And this past season, only allowed 12 points per game, 5th in D2, 5-time GAC conference champion, 5 NCAA Division II playoff appearances, 5 conference titles, 3 undefeated regular seasons. And the defense did everything. Honestly, I was on. I should have saved that. I should have saved that image. I saw an image of what y'all did defensively. It was unreal. Like you were like top 5 in every defensive statistical category in Division II football. It was unbelievable. And, so being able to go and do that kind of led you to number one, I talk about the AFCA Division II Assistant Coach of the Year. So you were an award winner for that. And I think one of the cool things about that award is it's not, the local newspapers, the guy that doesn't know if the football's pumped or stuff. It's ball coaches, it's people in the profession that look and they say, Ouachita Baptist defense is real. I'm putting Roy Thompson down as that guy. It's your peers that are voting for you for that. So what does that mean to you to not just get an award, but kind of receive that from people that understand what it takes and understand, that what you're doing there?
Man, it's huge. And you want to be appreciated for the work you do in this profession, right? And especially when you're on the smaller college level, you feel like you're always being underappreciated in some way. Yeah. And so having that recognition from the coaching community and the peers it was big time. It really was. It was amazing. But I want to say this too, right? The reason we were so successful at Ouachita, Frank Espy, DB coach, Kane Bryan, D-line coach, Mark Guerrero, he was our GA DB coach. The dude is a stud. Unbelievable coach. He just got hired full time at Ouachita. RJ Powell. We were a unit, bro. We did some crazy stuff on third down, and Kane and Frank ran that thing, and I just signed off on it. So we were a unit. The reason we were so successful is because we were a team. Yeah. I had my portion, they had their portion, and we put it all together, and we worked really well together. Whatever another guy's shortcomings was, the other guy was strong in that area. So I was the defensive coach. I was the AFCA Division II Coach of the Year because of those guys.
Absolutely.
I really was. Those guys are amazing. And I wouldn't be sitting in this chair today if those guys wasn't with me. So yeah. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you shouting those guys out, and hopefully they do too. I know obviously all this stuff works together, even having a good offensive, side of the ball. It all works together, man. But congrats to you to, help lead that and, pioneer that. And you mentioned now you're the head coach at Arkansas Tech. All right. So, what's kind of been first on the docket as you've taken over this new job? Like, obviously there's tons of things behind the scenes that kind of got to happen. What are some of your approaches on some of the first things you need to do?
Yeah. Man, the first thing was, of course, build a great coaching staff. And, you talk about those relationships. A lot of these guys are personal relationships that I've had before. And some of them were personal relationships that they had within each other. But as I was trying to get ready to build a staff, I want to be with good people. I want to be with people who are going to treat kids right, and so that was huge as far as trying to get the right people. Because I think a lot of times, like when you take over a job, if you don't get the right people in the room to start, you're setting yourself up for failure from the beginning. And so trying to make sure that we did that part right. And I feel like that. And then the second part is recruiting. I think in today's football, you can turn a program around through recruiting. And I'm saying all facets of recruiting. We recruit high school football players, and we will because we believe in it. And we're going to recruit transfer football players. I look at it like NFL free agency, right? You got to have the core part of your roster, and then you got to go out there and upgrade your roster in other ways also. And so, we developed, Coach Espy, we developed this thing called dog recruiting. Like everybody sit in a room, we're going to put the dogs on, and the staff going to agree on it. Everybody. Anybody can bring a dog to the table anytime they want to. So our recruiting methods over here hopefully are a little bit different and very aggressive. Like, if you got a dog, coach, send them over here and we'll watch them tomorrow. And we're going to put that together is dog recruiting, and everybody gets to say, because, all our job on the line. So we ain't going to hide in rooms and everybody get to pick their guy and you like him because your coaching buddy gave him to you. No, boom. We all on the line for this kid. Can he play at an elite level at Arkansas Tech and in GAC and national? And if he can't, we ain't going to take him. And if he can, then we all agreed to take him.
Yeah, that's it. I really like that, to be honest, because, like, that receiver drops that ball in the game, it's not going to be we all signed off for him.
We all signed off. That's right. We're going to sit there and watch them together. Yep.
That's right. I like that, man. I like that. Well, I kind of skipped over this and we kind of ended here, but obviously getting an opportunity to get your first head coaching job is huge. So once again, congrats on that. But what was that process like? Right? You guys had a really good team this past year. That this job opens up, this opportunity opens up. How did it go down?
Yeah, man. Look, I think if you ask most people in the GAC, they would tell you that Arkansas Tech's one of the top job or the top job in this league. It's the one that everybody probably covets without saying it out loud, right? We believe everybody believed they had great facilities. They were in a great location, 30,000 people in the town for a college town. Like, this is the one. And so when it came open, I was dying for the opportunity, and man, I sent my stuff in like you do on hundreds of jobs before. It just happened that on this opportunity they called me back, and I was the guy they were looking for. You know what I'm saying? And so the interview process, went well, and I was able to share my vision of how I was going to build a program. And so when this job came open, I knew I wanted it, because I believe you can compete for conference and national championships at Arkansas Tech. I think they've got the resources and the facilities to do it. And so I'm excited for the opportunity. My motto is go to work, right? It don't matter what you give me. I'm going to get it done. And so whatever resources we got or don't have, Coach Thompson not going to cry about it. I won with a lot of scholarships, and I won with not very many scholarships. Mm-hmm. You just got to go to work. You got to put your head down. You got to go grind. There's players out there from coast to coast. They're out there. You can complain about not getting the 130 minutes down the road, or you can go find another one.
Amen.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to get these dogs. We're going to find players wherever they are. Arkansas Tech is going to be, if we got to be a national recruiting program that will be successful, then that's what we'll do. If that's what it takes, I'm not going to complain. We're going to just do what we got to do to win the ball game.
Go to work. I like that, Coach. Well, I'm not going to get in your way and going to work here anymore. I appreciate head ball coach's time. I know an hour is tough to give away these days, man. I appreciate you spending it with us here at the AFCA. Once again, congrats on the head job. Congrats on the award and the recognition from your peers. And we look forward to kind of cheering you on. And hopefully I get the opportunity to shake your hand here at the next convention and meet you in person, okay?
Yes, sir. Hey, thanks so much for your time.
Delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams in thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.